This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com, and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All your support is greatly appreciated. Jihadist Psychopath by Dr. Jamie Glazov. I will tell you as an expert on Sharia, as a former child bride who has suffered and faced my own jihadi psychopath, I want you to go and order this book on Amazon.com or go to jamieglazov.com. Get a copy for yourself. You know why? Because you need to be equipped with the knowledge to fight our enemy so you can save your daughters and your granddaughters from future of Islam.
Good evening. Welcome to the Jamie Glazov Moment. Tonight, ISIS bride kills 5-year-old slave girl. My friends, I don't know if you're watching it, there's a German woman that is on trial right now in the death of a 5-year-old girl that she and her husband held as an ISIS slave. I chose the title on purpose because it's interesting how our culture and society plays with semantics and with words, because somehow this German woman allowed this young girl to die. I'm going to give you the details in a minute, but it's interesting. If you allow someone to die, you've killed that person. We know even in American law that if you are a complicit in a certain murder, you often get the same jail sentence as the person that murdered somebody. I'm just very interested in the terminology that's used and how, especially these jihadis and jihadi brides, are excused in many respects. But let's see what's going on here, okay? So there's these devoted followers of the Islamic State. There's a German man and woman, apparently their husband and wife. They bought a 5-year-old Yazidi girl in Iraq in 2015. So they bought a little girl. And this is sanctioned, by the way, in Islam. This isn't just some indiscriminate thing just that popped on the top of their head that just anybody does. In Islam, this is sanctioned, to take kafirs as slaves. This does not occur in Judaism and in Christianity, because even if it did, hypothetically, it would be a violation of the Judeo-Christian tradition. It would be a violation of the Bible, but not in Islam. So this husband and wife team bought this 5-year-old Yazidi girl to use as a slave. And then, as the story describes, they let her die of thirst in the scorching heat. Now, the trial of this woman has begun in Germany, and she's the defendant, and apparently she left the Islamic State. She ended up in Europe, then she was desperate to return to the Islamic State. She found someone to drive her to the Middle East. The driver ended up actually working with German security services, and he recorded the conversation with this woman. Just look, this is, I credit Jihad Watch. Robert Spencer is covering all this stuff. Just follow Jihad Watch and Google these details, and you'll be able to read Jihad Watch's coverage of all this. But this is a 27-year-old German woman who at the moment is only identified as Jennifer W. And the judge in Munich recently read out the charges against her, which include murder, war crimes, membership in a foreign terrorist organization, and weapons violations. Now, the Yazidi girl's mother survived and is expected to testify. She's serving as a co-plaintiff in the trial. And she was also held as a slave by this couple. Now, what had happened to this poor 5-year-old Yazidi girl is that she fell ill and was wetting her mattress. And the defendant's husband allegedly punished the girl by chaining her outside in the heat and leaving her in great agony to die of thirst. Now, when I say allegedly, I'm not doing it to defend the husband, somehow to say, oh, proven until guilty. No. The girl's dead. What I'm saying is, this is the woman's version, this woman's version. So why I'm bringing this up today, too, is I'm very interested in these jihadi brides. Somewhere in our culture, in our discourse, I just did a moment on this recently, on how we know and found out that the jihadi brides, along with other things, were whipping the Yazidi slaves with cables and torturing them, etc. It's very interesting how it's the jihadi males that are somehow, these evil people, which they are, but somehow the jihadi brides are just these innocent women that somehow got caught up in all this, and they just want to come home now, and this really mystifies me and outrages me. I'm sure there's some other words I could use. These are war criminals. There needs to be a world court set up with a whole bunch of judges, and these jihadi brides should be in chains and in some kind of cage and tried, like in the Nuremberg trials. These are war criminals. And so this is the woman's version in this case, this jihadi bride, or whatever we want to call this particular woman. But she's involved in supporting the Islamic State, and it would be legitimate to call her a jihadi bride one way or another, because being there and being in these circumstances is jihad. Getting kafir slaves is a jihadi practice. And how do we even know that her husband is the one that punished this girl by chaining her and putting her out into the heat? Might have been the woman herself. Where's the husband? Let's bring him in. And thank God that the mother survived and will be testifying. We know something else about this particular woman too. Apparently, it was her job to make sure in this Islamic State environment that the other women were upholding the terrorist organization's dress code and behavior codes. And so to intimidate them, as the reporting is told, she carried an AK-47 machine gun, a pistol, an explosive vest, and she was inflicting punishment on other women, intimidating other women to follow Islamic dress code. So this is a bully. This is somebody that's enabling these Sharia codes. And we know that in January 2016, somehow she ended up visiting the German embassy in Ankara, Turkey. The Turkish authorities arrested her. They deported her to Germany, where she was allowed to go free. And then she tried to make it back to the Islamic State territory, etc., etc. Bit of a confusing tale. Look it up. This woman's on trial now. The bottom line is that she enabled this awful, agonizing death of this 5-year-old Yazidi girl. And she was engaged in this. And I want to bring this up again because there's just this assumption somewhere of how the jihadis are evil, but these brides that were involved in all this, these women that were involved in all this, are somehow these innocent people. No, they're complicit, they enabled, and in many cases, these are the perpetrators of what's going on. Just overall, I would recommend, if you haven't lived human life, to the full extent, and you've been insulated from reality, and you somehow believe that men can be evil, but women can't be evil, just look around you. I mean, there's, as Solzhenitsyn wrote, good and evil, they intersect and cross through the heart of every human being. In terms of this planet, my friends, there's only one person who has never sinned, and that's Jesus Christ. And he was God and he was man as well, but he did not sin. That's the only person that did not sin that was in this world. I would recommend reading Phyllis Chesler's book, Woman's Inhumanity to Woman. And we can only imagine what these jihadi brides and other things we can call them were doing in the Islamic State when it was perpetrating its slavery and its torture. We know that, for instance, many Yazidi sex slaves were found buried alive, or many of them had their throats cut, etc., in a mass grave. And I'm very interested for more investigations in this? Are they occurring? What role did the jihadi brides play in this? This is a story also reminding us of slavery. Remember, slavery is acceptable in Islam. It's mandated in Islam. It's sanctioned in Islam. Quran chapter 33, verse 50. Quran chapter 4, verse 3. Sanctions enslavement of the kafir, of the unbelievers. Look up my previous Glazov Gang special. It was a Jamie Glazov moment. Jihadi brides beat children with cables. And this is an issue of where these Islamic women who join the Islamic State in all these different ways are war criminals. And in terms of everything we know what they were doing, the question remains, what else were they doing? And why was this particular woman in this story running free? And the only reason she got caught was because of this drive that she tried to get back to the Islamic State and was caught. We're dealing with real evil here. Please, my friends, keep a track of all this. Get involved, get engaged. Join the public discourse and demand justice. And demand that these jihadi brides face justice. Because the death of this 5-year-old Yazidi girl is tragic, it's criminal, but that 5-year-old girl represents thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of women and girls that suffer at the hands of Islamic gender apartheid, of Islamic jihad, of Islamic sex slavery, and of Islam. Thank you for joining us this evening. We'll see you soon on the next Jamie Glazov moment. Good night.